here with Congressman Huffman. We're going to talk a lot today about freedom of speech, separation of church and state, Christian nationalism. And in the Treaty of Tripoli that was passed unanimously, June 7th of 1797, they said the United States government is in no way founded on the Christian religion. Yet we have Christian nationalists saying this is a Christian nation. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, the Treaty of Tripoli is like a breakup letter with Theocracy. It could not be more clear in telling the world that we are in no way founded on the Bible or Christianity, but these are stubborn myths that keep circulating through Christian nationalists, and we're sort of at a high watermark right now of Christian nationalism with Speaker Mike Johnson and this Religious Liberty Commission, so expect to hear a lot more about that between now and next July 4th, which is the big 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. They're trying to kind of build a Christian nationalist crescendo into that.
And what are their reasons that they give for making this claim that America is a Christian nation?
Well, it's very self-serving.
It's pretty convenient, isn't it?
Yeah. They're trying to retrofit all this piety and covenantal Christianity into our founding in ways that we can certainly rebut and disprove. But the bottom line is they want to do it so they can break down the wall of separation between church and state and have power and move their biblical doctrine into public policy. That's what it's all about.
And you're the co-founder of the Free Thought Caucus.
Yeah.
And you guys released a study on Mike Johnson's beliefs and the danger that it poses to America. Can you kind of break down that report for me?
Oh, it's a lot. It's a 14-page white paper. And the bottom line is we've never seen anyone like Mike Johnson in a position of this much power. He's second in line to the presidency. And he goes way back with the most extreme, fringy fanatics of the Christian nationalist movement. I mean, David Barton, Tony Perkins, all of these folks, he used to work for a group that the Southern Poverty Law Center has designated as a hate group.
And it's interesting, too, that there's still this strong attachment to David Barton, despite how much he has been discredited, how much what he said and taught was completely made up.
Yeah, when your own publisher pulls your book because it's full of lies, and you then just republish it and keep pushing it, and Speaker Johnson keeps repeating all of these myths. I mean, these are the lies that just keep coming at us.
And I think, as a former Christian nationalist, what I wish more people understood is how prevalent these beliefs and ideals are within these segments of Christianity. Like, Doug Wilson is not an anomaly. It's actually fairly common in Christian fundamentalism. And what do you see, like, as Christian nationalism builds into this crescendo, what do you see are the immediate biggest threats to how we understand separation of church and state, freedom of speech, freedom of religion?
The threats are so much more widespread than most Americans realize. And from in the arena of Congress here, I see it every day. I mean, right across, 10 feet across the hall is an Appeal to Heaven flag in front of my colleague David Rouser's office. So
that is a Christian fundamentalism flag that is very, very important and very integral to their belief system.
Yeah, and to like the fringiest part of it, the Seven Mountain Mandate, this dominion theology, which is really fundamentally trying to get rid of democracy.
Yeah.
They have sort of figured out, I mean, I'm a little older than you, and I grew up with a right-wing Christianity that was the moral majority. This was Jerry Falwell, your Liberty University founder there. But this, they were fighting a culture war within the rules of democracy. I didn't agree with them, I didn't like them, but it was a rule-bound debate. They weren't
and it was an actual debate.
It was an actual debate.
Yeah.
He had Ted Kennedy as a guest to speak to Liberty University students. There was some measure of reaching out to, to not just make it a Republican-only thing. So much has changed in a single generation about right-wing Christianity. They now are no longer working within the rules of democracy. They're trying to end democracy. That's what that Appeal to Heaven flag is all about.
Well, and with the Seven Mountains Mandate is essentially the doctrine of God has given us permission to control every facet of the world, like entertainment, business, the country, and therefore if you oppose us, you're siding with the devil.
You're demonic.
Because God's on my side.
Yeah.
What do you think the turning point was? Like, how did we get from this within the bounds of decorum, decency, legality to where we are now?
I've been kind of digging into that and thinking about it a lot. It began happening in the 1990s, and I think this is pretty deep wonky stuff here. But I think it had a lot to do with the end of the Cold War. So the moral majority and the 1980s rule-bound debate over their culture war kind of set up the godless Soviets as the bad guy, the enemy. And it was always framed around that. And when that just went away, they had to find a new demon, a new scapegoat, and they looked internally. And it began to be feminism, it began to be wokeness and all of this other stuff. And I think that's kind of the fundamental shift, starting in the 1990s, really moving out in the 2000s, and then here we are.
Here we are. And talk to me about the fellowship, also known as the family, that runs the National Prayer Breakfast, which is a Christian event to the exclusion of other religions. Talk to me about that and why that's a violation of our separation of church and state.
So it's part of what I call the shadow theocracy here in Washington. And again, there's a lot more of that than most Americans really realize too. And I think it would disturb them to know every day here in this Capitol how many things are going on that are just absolutely bringing extreme Christian doctrine into public policy, into public institutions in ways that Jefferson and Madison would absolutely hate.
Madison in particular.
Madison in particular. So, I should mention at some point that the vast majority of Christians do not support this.
No, absolutely not. And it's not in alignment with the teachings of Christ either.
No.
Has nothing to do with the Bible. The Bible's the excuse.
Yeah. So, I should always put that out up front. This is not anti-Christian or anti-religion or anything. It's anti-theocracy, it's anti-extremism. And we have to, I think, get better at talking about these things. So I'm really glad that you are, kind of courageously stepping into this intersection of religion and politics.
It's important. And also, for me, what I find troublesome about Christian nationalism is because I'm someone who honors the teachings of Christ, because they are incredible and truly life-changing, whether you believe he was divine or not. But when they're hijacked to justify cruelty and subjugation and dominance, that for me was a line that I couldn't allow to be crossed.
Yeah. So I call myself like a Jesus-loving atheist. Like the Sermon on the Mount was the longest continuing discourse in the Bible. They never talk about the Sermon on the Mount.
It's always the Ten Commandments, not the Beatitudes.
They're deeply uninterested in it. So, yeah, and I find that fascinating too. There's this raging debate within Christianity. You've got Christians against Christian nationalism and a lot of other kind of trying to reclaim the integrity of their faith, and I'm rooting for them.
Me too. And also the idea that just because Christianity is not given prominence or preference in a public sphere does not mean persecution. Christian nationalists have been very good at turning that rhetoric to they're taking the Christ out of Christmas, and it's like, no.
Don't you dare say Merry Christmas.
How dare you? It's just that, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and all the other holidays don't fit on the banner.
Yeah, you're seeing this. Are you following the Religious Liberty Commission?
Yes.
Which is the sham commission. Everyone should understand this is something to be disturbed about, not to celebrate. But we talked about the Christian nation myth. That's like one of their main things, is to push this sort of reimagined fake history of our founding. But the second myth that they peddle all the time is what they call the naked public square. And I don't know if you've encountered this, but they argue that non-Christians and especially non-believers are so hostile to religion that they want to create a public square in public life that's hermetically sealed off against all faith. And this is where the war on Christmas nonsense and other things come in. And you're hearing this a lot in some of the witnesses and the testimony of the Religious Liberty Commission. It's a total straw man. I mean, none of us think that the public square should be completely sanitized. People of faith should just shut up. I mean, what we want is to share the public square on equal terms.
With everyone.
Yeah.
That everyone is truly represented. Yeah, and it absolutely is, and there is this animosity that they believe that if you're not supporting me 100%, you're therefore my enemy, which is not at all how that works. And in the midst of all this nationalist movement, we're also seeing a series of cases against CBS, ABC. Donald Trump just announced a $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times claiming libel and defamation, in part because they endorsed. How can myself, people watching this video, support the Free Thought Caucus in your work?
Awesome. So I think people need to understand that there is a Free Thought Caucus in the Congress. It's unlike anything we've ever had in the history of this place. We came together in 2018. The point is to defend the separation of church and state, to defend secular government, evidence-based, science-based, reason-based public policy making instead of religious government. So we've grown to 32 members, and we're bringing in a fellow. We're going to have our first Free Thought Caucus fellow who's going to be able to staff us and really ramp up our capacity. How people can support us, they can go to my website. I have some Free Thought Caucus information on my website. One of these days, maybe we'll have enough resources and capacity to have our very own website. And we're just going to keep trying to ramp this thing up. But we're doing fantastic work, and I'm so glad you know about it.
Thank you. And thank you for your work, Congressman Huffman. Everyone, please go visit his website. Please visit the Free Thought Caucus and support that work as we stand against Christian nationalism so that everyone gets the right to serve God or not, how they see fit. Thank you for your work.
Thank you for your great work, too.